Okay, so are you ready to dive deep?
Always.
This time, we're tackling the foundation of Stephen Covey's, the 7 habits of highly effective people. We're talking about the core ideas that the rest of the book builds on.
Yeah, the stuff that might seem simple at first glance, but when you really dig in.
It can totally change how you see things.
Yeah.
And for anyone who really wants to get the most out of the 7 habits, this is where it all starts. Like, are you ready for some serious aha moments?
Yeah.
Because we're about to uncover some game changers. We're talking about how you view effectiveness, how you approach relationships, even how you think about parenting.
It's incredible, really. Right from the get-go, Covey wants us to question how we see the world, not just jump into techniques, but really examine our paradigms.
Right, because what good is having the perfect map?
If you're in the wrong city.
Exactly.
Which is basically what Covey talks about.
Hmm.
He uses this analogy of trying to navigate Chicago with a Detroit map. Like, you can try so hard, drive super fast,
You're
but
still going to get lost.
exactly. And just like with a wonky map, sometimes our paradigms, those mental models we use, they can lead us in the wrong direction.
Oh, I've totally been there. Remember that time I was using that gas station map, and it was like totally upside down.
Oh, no.
I was so lost, it wasn't even funny.
And that's kind of what Covey realized was happening with his own son. The son was struggling in school, and Covey and his wife were like trying everything to fix it, but nothing was working.
So they're coming at it with the best of intentions, but maybe with a slightly off map. Is that where this is going?
Totally. Covey had this realization that they were seeing their son through this lens of inadequacy.
So no matter what they did, they were acting based on his limitations, not his potential.
Yeah, and that's the thing about inaccurate paradigms. They lead to misunderstandings, ineffective actions. Basically, you miss opportunities.
And this is where Covey's distinction between character ethic and personality ethic comes in.
Exactly. It's so easy to fall into the trap of quick fixes.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like, give me the easy button.
Right. But a lot of times, those quick fixes are only dealing with the symptoms, not the root cause.
It's like cramming for like a farming exam, but not very effective in the long run.
Exactly.
And Covey actually tells this story about his daughter's birthday party that really highlights this. He was trying to make her share her presents, but, kids, she wasn't having it.
Oh, I can only imagine that battle. So what happened?
Well, Covey realized that he was trying to force this behavior, this sharing, before she had developed that inner sense of security that would make her want to share.
So it's not just about what we do, but who we are on the inside.
Exactly. It's about developing those core principles, building that inner strength.
Which leads us perfectly to habit 1, be proactive.
Ah, yes, the power of proactivity. Choosing how we respond instead of just reacting to everything.
Covey calls it being responsible. I love that.
Me too. Responsible. Like, we have more control than we realize.
Yes. And that's where understanding the difference between our circle of concern and our circle of influence is so important.
Okay, break those down for me.
So your circle of concern, that's everything you might worry about but don't have control over.
Okay, so like the weather, the
Yeah.
economy.
Exactly. But then there's your circle of influence, the stuff you can actually do something about.
So proactive people, they're focusing that energy on their circle of influence, the stuff they can actually impact.
Exactly. Instead of dwelling on problems or blaming others, they're all about finding solutions and taking action where they can.
And Covey saw this firsthand with his son, right? He talks about how he changed his approach to those school struggles.
He did. Instead of worrying about the teachers or the curriculum, stuff he couldn't directly control,
Right.
he focused on connecting with his son, encouraging him, being supportive at home.
And that shift, that proactive energy, it actually made a difference in how his son viewed school, too.
Totally. It's a great example of how being proactive can create positive change, even in tough situations.
It actually reminds me of the story of Joseph in the Old Testament. Talk about proactivity.
Oh, absolutely. Even when he was in prison, he was finding ways to make a positive impact. Amazing.
He didn't let circumstances define him, which is a perfect segue into habit 2, beginning with the end in mind.
Oh, it's all about intentionality.
Okay, I like that. So how does Covey break this down?
Well, he talks about how everything is created twice. First in your mind and then in the real world. Like, think about building a house. You wouldn't start without a blueprint, right?
Oh gosh, no. Could you imagine?
Total disaster. But so often we do that with our own lives.
It's true. We get caught up in the day-to-day and forget to think about the bigger picture.
Exactly. Beginning with the end in mind means being intentional. Like, what do you actually want to create with your life?
And this isn't just about huge goals, right? It applies to everyday things too.
Absolutely. Like how you interact with your family, how you approach your work, everything.
So if your goal is to be a more patient parent, you might start by having some dedicated time with your kids every day, no distractions.
Perfect example. It's about those small daily actions that support your bigger vision.
Love it. Okay, so we're being proactive. We're thinking about the big picture. What's next?
Well, then it's about prioritizing, making sure our actions line up with what's truly important. That's where habit 3 comes in. Put first things first.
And this is where that whole PPC balance thing fits in, right? The whole
Ah.
golden eggs analogy.
Exactly. It's so easy to just focus on the immediate results, the golden eggs. But if you ignore the goose that lays those eggs, if you're not taking care of the thing that produces the results.
You'll be out of luck eventually.
Exactly. And the PPC balance is relevant in every area of life. At work, it might mean prioritizing your well-being or professional development.
Instead of just burning yourself out to meet deadlines.
Exactly. Or in relationships, it might be investing time in meaningful conversations and connection.
Because relationships need nurturing too. Just like that goose.
Exactly. Sometimes you need to slow down to speed up.
Love it. And speaking of relationships, that brings us to a topic I'm always fascinated by.
Let me guess. Habit 4. Think win-win.
You know it. Covey introduces those 6 paradigms of human interaction, which is fascinating.
Right. It's like a guide to understanding how people approach their interactions with others.
Okay, so starting with win-lose. That's the if I win, you lose
Yeah.
mentality, right?
Mhm.
Super common.
Oh, yeah. Think about competitive environments. That idea that there's only so much success to go around.
So for one person to succeed, someone else has to fail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that race to Bermuda example Covey gives, where the company president accidentally created a cutthroat environment.
Because he pitted everyone against each other.
Exactly. It created fear and distrust instead of encouraging teamwork.
It's sad, but a lot of us are taught that win-lose mentality early on.
It's true. Think about how often kids are compared to each other.
Setting them up to think they have to be better than someone else to be loved.
It's about recognizing that someone else's success doesn't diminish your own.
And then, of course, there's the flip side, lose-win.
The people pleasers.
Always putting everyone else's needs first.
And while it might seem selfless, it can lead to resentment and unhappiness.
Because true generosity comes from a place of security, not from trying to please everyone all the time.
Exactly. And if you combine win-lose and lose-win,
You get lose-lose.
the ultimate recipe for disaster.
Everyone loses.
Exactly. Covey also talks about the win paradigm.
Oh, right. What was that one again?
That's where someone's just focused on their own goals. They don't really care if others win or lose.
It's a pretty self-centered approach.
Totally. And while it might work in the short term, it's not great for building strong relationships.
Because real effectiveness is about working together.
Exactly. Which brings us back to win-win.
The gold standard.
Right. It's about believing there's enough for everyone, finding solutions where everyone feels good.
It's shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Yes. Win-win isn't about settling for less. It's about finding creative solutions that meet everyone's needs.
But what if you can't reach a win-win?
Well, then it might be time for win-win or no deal.
So you're saying it's okay to walk away.
Sometimes, yes. Forcing a compromise isn't always the answer. It can actually damage relationships in the long run.
So knowing when to walk away is just as important as knowing when to engage.
Exactly.
But to find those win-win solutions, you have to really understand the other person's perspective, right?
You got it. And that's where habit 5 comes in. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
It's like that saying, to get something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done, you know?
It's so true. And understanding the other person's point of view, that's huge for finding those win-win solutions.
Which takes us to habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Ah, the key to real connection.
And collaboration. And ultimately, synergy. But Covey points out that a lot of us, we don't really listen to understand.
We listen to reply.
So true. We're already thinking about what we're going to say next.
Instead of really tuning in to what the other person is saying, both with their words and their body language.
We're missing the nuances, the emotions behind the words.
Exactly. And we filter everything through our own experiences and judgments.
It's like we're so busy playing tennis with their words that we forget to have a real conversation.
And this is even worse when we disagree with someone.
Oh, absolutely. We get defensive, we interrupt, we end up just talking past each other.
Which is why empathetic listening is so important. It's about setting aside your own agenda, even your own opinions for a minute, and really trying to see things from their perspective.
Even if you don't agree with them.
Especially then, Covey talks about it like putting on the other person's glasses.
Oh, I like that. Trying to see the world through their eyes.
Exactly. feeling what they feel, understanding their motivations.
Because it's about connecting with their emotions and experiences, not just hearing their words.
Yes, it's about creating that safe space for honest communication, where everyone feels heard and respected.
And that connection, that's where trust is built.
Exactly. And that's how you resolve conflict and find those win-win solutions.
Because when you feel understood, you're more open to understanding someone else.
And that openness paves the way for synergy, which is what Habit 6 is all about, synergize.
Synergy. It's like the 1-1-1-3 equation, where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Covey uses this analogy of a choir. Each individual voice is beautiful, but
But when they all come together in harmony,
magic. It's about embracing those differences.
that's where creativity comes from, right? Different viewpoints, different ideas.
Absolutely. Covey actually tells this story about a group of business executives struggling to come up with a new marketing strategy.
Oh no, sounds like a recipe for disaster. Were they stuck in their own heads?
Totally. It was a classic case of negative synergy. But then something changed. They decided to really listen to each other.
Instead of just trying to force their own ideas on everyone else?
Yeah. They started asking questions, being open to new possibilities. They had a breakthrough. They came up with an idea that was way better than anything they could have come up with on their own.
It's amazing what can happen when people really work together. So synergy is about valuing those different perspectives, being open to new ideas.
And being humble, being willing to let go of your own ego a little bit.
It's about the collective good.
And when you get synergy right, the possibilities are endless.
Okay, so we're being proactive, we're thinking long-term, we're building strong relationships, we're embracing synergy. What's left?
Well, we can't forget the most important part, taking care of ourselves.
Which brings us to habit 7, sharpen the saw.
It's easy to overlook this one, but it's so important for long-term success.
It's like we've been talking about how to use the saw, but now we need to make sure the saw itself is in good shape.
Exactly. Sharpen the saw is all about investing in ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
It's recognizing that we're not robots, right? We need to recharge.
We are our most valuable asset, and we need to treat ourselves that way.
So what does that look like? Give me some examples.
Well, it's different for everyone, right? For some people, it's exercise, eating healthy. For others, it might be meditation, spending time in nature, reading.
It's about finding what fills your cup.
Exactly. And Covey talks about having a daily private victory, like taking at least an hour each day to do something just for you.
A daily private victory. I love that. But let's be real. Finding a whole hour every single day, that's a challenge.
It takes practice. But it's about shifting your mindset. Self-care isn't selfish. It's essential.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
And when you're burnt out and exhausted, you're not going to be effective in any area of life.
So true. Taking care of ourselves benefits everyone around us.
It's a ripple effect. Our well-being impacts our relationships, our work, our communities.
It's about being the best version of ourselves so that we can make a positive impact on the world, which is ultimately what the 7 Habits is all about, right?
Absolutely. It's about living a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
And impactful.
And it's not some complicated theory. These are things we can all do.
It's about making conscious choices every single day. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the 7 Habits, I want to leave you with this. What's one small step you can take today to incorporate these principles into your own life?
It could be anything. Taking a few minutes to meditate, writing down what you're grateful for, thinking about something you can be more proactive about.
Remember, even small changes can make a big difference over time. So keep diving deep, my friends, and keep striving to live a life that's truly effective.